my computer, and it's going.
Other way.
Welcome to tonight's personalized info session for the Come On Out Japan Global English Camp 2022. Thank you for taking the time to come and be with us wherever your time zone might be, whether it's the West Coast, the East Coast, the Mountain Time Zone that I refuse to acknowledge exists. Sorry, that's an inside joke. Or the UK, where I currently am. Tonight, we're going to be covering these 8 pieces of information plus or minus 2. We're going to give you an introduction to Global English Camp. So what's the program about? We're going to let you know who we are as Come On Out. We're going to give you an overview of what does the orientation look like, what does the training look like, what does the camp itself look like when you're actually teaching students in Japan and traveling over there. What are the logistics of it? If you choose to participate, what would it be like to actually be involved on the ground? What do you get to do outside the classroom during the camp? What activities could you expect from Come On Out? And of course, your opportunity to apply now and throughout the presentation, a chance for you to ask questions. We'll be having about 2 or 3 slides. You'll see them when they come up. They are light blue in color, and those will be opportunities for you to ask questions. But by all means, if you have questions whilst I'm speaking, please do put them in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that throughout. But before we jump in, let's introduce ourselves. So we got 3 of us here today, myself, Matt, and Gwen. I'll go with me, Matt, and then Gwen, because you guys are on my screen in that order. So my name is Robert. I have been involved with Come On Out since 2018. I originally joined just as another intern, like many of you guys are thinking about becoming. And legitimately, I love the program for what it was. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if I could lead the training one day? Well, considering how this summer I became head of training and actually got to lead the onboarding, I'm feeling pretty accomplished. So let that just be a thing there. This program is pretty cool because people like me, against all odds, are driven to stick around even after the first year. With that, Matt, what about you?
Thanks, Robert. And Robert did lead a wonderful training in our online camp this summer. I'm Matt, the program director. I started doing the program in 2015. That was the first year. There were only 10 of us, and we're going to be looking for about 200 next summer. And the one thing I always say, I taught junior high school for a full year, world history, and at the end of the year, I questioned whether or not I had an impact on all my students. Will they remember me? Was this a great year that I, had these everlasting impacts on my students? And in English camp, after just 5 days, I knew on the last day with each of my students that I had a true, an impact and that they would not forget this program. And that's why I think it's so special. And probably the same reason Gwen and Robert come back too. So thanks for everyone's interest, and I'll hand it off to Gwen.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name is Gwen. I am the Director of Digital Strategy at Come On Out Japan. And I started here in 2019 when I was an intern, just like hopefully a lot of you will be. And I just love the program so much that I came on to work with the company and hopefully help make a difference in people's experiences in programs like this. And much like Matt, I just had so many great connections with other interns who I've made honestly friends for life with, and also with the students who hopefully made a huge impact on them and saw a huge progression in their English skills and their life goals. So yeah, I'm based in Michigan at University of Michigan. So go blue if you also go to U of M. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Gwen. Thanks a lot, Matt. And before we jump in, I actually just want to highlight on one thing that Gwen said, how you make friends for life in this program. One thing that I think makes this program really special is that it's very rare that you come together with a group of other people and you feel like, wow, we all have a lot in common. We share a lot of the same values around wanting to contribute to the lives of students or wanting to make a contribution through teaching. There's something really magical about being able to come into a space with people where you have all this stuff in common. And I think for me, and I think they speak for many of us here, that has been the thing that's kept us around. It's not just the fact that traveling to Japan is cool, it's that you actually get to be around people who share a lot of the values that you share. And if you're here, chances are you probably share it too. So with that being said, let's jump in to this presentation, starting with this video. I'm looking to you, Matt and Gwen, to tell me if something's horribly wrong and the audio doesn't work, but it should work.
Global English Camp is a program dedicated to the importance of gaining an unparalleled life opportunity via cross-cultural education. Through an intensive weekly program focused not only on language skills, but also relevant global issues, university students and recent graduates from around the world facilitate the improvement of expressing opinions in English and impact students' discovery of their individual life missions.
My favorite part is the mutual exchange of learning and ideas and cultures. It's very much a shared back and forth between the mentors and the students.
It's really inspiring to see the students grow in confidence. By the end of the camp, they started defining more of what they wanted to do and what their future goals were. They're all brave enough and willing to share their life mission with the entire class. I've heard so many stories where the students really want to study abroad or learn English better as a result of this English camp.
Above everything, there's a massive energy to everyone involved. It makes the whole week so fun.
It's really, really amazing watching how they grow and develop over just 5 days.
During the 5-week program, interns gain more than a stimulating teaching experience. They also gain new perspectives, knowledge, and friendships from this unforgettable summer program.
I think Japanese education puts much emphasis on just studying for entrance exam, but these programs help students think about their life mission through listening to interns' presentation. Our interns here have a strong life mission and desire to learn more, so students is also impacted.
And so that gives you just a bit of an idea of what does the program look like? What do people like about it? And what's it like to actually be in the room, whether it's reading from a textbook or talking with students or singing karaoke up on stage. There's a lot in this program. So before we go any further though, that's what that's what the Global English Camp looks like, but who are we? Well, as Come On Out, the kind of the bigger company that Come On Out fits under, we create life-changing experiences for university students to teach abroad, for Japanese students to develop self-confidence and language skills, and for everybody to develop as global citizens and grow as individuals. Does that sound a bit corporate? Maybe. If you have something better, please write it in the chat because I'm the copy editor and I wrote that. But that's really the idea. It's not just about learning stuff. We all sit in classrooms and we all learn stuff. It's about who can you be for yourself? Who can your students be for themselves as they become more confident in speaking a language? As a little aside here, I just flew back from Poland today. And to say I've learned Polish is an overstatement. I can literally order a cappuccino. But I've been to Italy, where I speak the language pretty well, and I'm too terrified to order something in a restaurant because they might ask me a second question. There's a big difference between having the skills to speak a language and having the confidence to apply it. And that's what we create as Come On Out, and that's what you have the power to create with your students through this program. So at Global English Camp, what you do is you help Japanese students to learn about world issues, to discuss the solutions that they could have, and to share their life missions in English. The life mission really being that thing, which is what do they want to do with their lives? What do they want to spark and create? Which I will say, I thought that was more of a gimmick when I first applied this program. I thought that's cool, but I think it's maybe kind of a bit of a gimmick. In Japan, life mission is huge. So by stepping into this sort of program, this sort of world, you realize how important it is to actually support students in getting this and to be inspired by how much they've already thought about it already. So then what is Global English Camp as a key to what Come On Out does? It's a 5-week program in Japan where you facilitate themed group discussions with about 4 to 6 Japanese high school students. This all depends on the venue. This depends on the number of students that are attending that week. but your group size will tend to be around that number. Usually you'll teach alone, but in some venues you might be teaching with another teacher as well. You might be co-teaching. And in addition to your day job, you also get to do a lot of additional opportunities and activities at the end of the day, after the teaching day is done. It could be getting to go to museums, it could be getting to go to karaoke bars, it could be getting to travel around Japan, see what there is to offer. There's a lot of things, and a lot. We get into that later. That's usually what makes the info session run on so long. And although this is an unpaid internship, our sponsor covers certain major expenses. So this includes things like the cost of the airfare. This includes reimbursement for travel around Japan for program-related reasons, and things like meals. We'll go more into that later. We also had a remote camp, which we ran the last 2 summers. In this last summer, we had a 2.5-day camp. So our usual camp is Monday through Friday. The digital camp is a Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday full. And 2021 was our biggest remote camp, where we actually had 3 weekends, as opposed to the 5 we have in physical camp, 152 coaches, and over 2,000 and almost 2,000 students. So in the last few years, we've had to diversify between the physical and the in-person program, and we found ways to make both work. And it's important that we share this because right now, we're looking to host this program, this summer's program in person. And we have a lot of reason to believe that this will be possible. To give you the transparency on our end, what we rely on is essentially what the Ministry of Tourism says, and essentially what are the movements in the Japanese business world. What we have been following is the extent to which Japan is open for businesses to take business trips. That is the biggest source of pressure to open up travel to Japan again. And once that becomes more open, we can expect a great ability for non-business trips to happen as well. So this is to say, there is still a possibility of there being a remote camp this summer, and we want to be transparent about that. But we have every hope and every ambition to make this another great summer of an in-person camp across Japan. And Come On Out has quite a few faces. This program is hosted by Come On Out Japan, where we focus on bringing you top mentors from top universities to Japan to discuss world issues and life missions with students. We also have Come On Out English, where we offer one-to-one virtual English lessons to students of all levels, and also offer tailored online learning solutions for them as well. You might also be familiar with Come On Out eTEFL, which is our licensed way for you to become an English teacher through getting a certificate as a teacher of English as a foreign language. Hence where the funny acronym TEFL comes from. And we've also got Come On Out Adventures, which offers personalized outdoor retreats in the American Midwest, hosted by our founder. One of these is not like the other. However, our founder is very fond of the outdoors. And that's the great thing about being a startup. You get to be very personable and very relaxed in presentations like this, and also offer a lot of different things as a business. And when it comes to our partners in Japan, the people that actually help make this program possible, we have our academic partner, Toshin High School, which is a cram school based in Japan, one of the biggest in Japan, that brings over 40 years of leading educational experience. And they oversee the recruitment of Japanese students that makes this program possible, and also helps coordinate all the venues across Japan. One thing that I have not mentioned that I realize should be a slide is actually just how far-ranging this program is. When we say it's a program in Japan, we don't just mean Tokyo. We don't just mean Tokyo and Osaka. In this program, you can literally travel to anywhere of approximately, I believe, 40 to 50 venues, ranging from big cities like Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, but also ranging to any parts of any of the islands. We have the venues also exist in Sapporo and the northern island of Hokkaido, Fukuoka and the western island of Kyushu, and Shikoku also has programs as well. I just don't remember the name of any cities there. You can even go to Okinawa, which is also one of my ambitions in this program to travel to. And this is all made possible by having a major Japanese cram school as our partner. And likewise, we have a housing partner through Come On Up. Very similar name, very interesting, I know. They handle housing, transportation, language classes, activities, and pretty much all things admin throughout the program. And they're the ones that help us to move around Japan, across all these far-flung locations, and also sleep somewhere, because sleeping is pretty cool, and having a place to do that is excellent. I'm pausing right now because I don't remember how we treat the testimonial slide. I spent a lot of time selecting these pictures of that lovely goofy guy in the background there. But the point is, we'll skip over quite a lot of these. But the gist of it that we want you to take away is that whether you are a seasoned traveler or not, whether you've taught a lot or not, this is a great experience to really get a sense of, is teaching what I want to do, or how can I take my teaching to a new level? When you come to Japan, after having been selected for the program, the first week is focused on orientation and training. And this has three real purposes. The first is to meet your team. Getting to know the people you're working with is great, because you get to understand, how do your styles compare? What do you like about being in Japan? What drove you to do what you do? And it's really where you start making the first of those friends for life that Gwen touched upon. It's also to learn about Japan. What can make you effective as a teacher? What might make it a struggle? The answer is always silence. Silence in the classroom is a big thing when teaching, and you learn how to tackle that in the onboarding training. And you also, just broadly, you learn how to be a great English coach for the students that you have. We cover not just the essentials of teaching and how to deliver material and how to cover a textbook, but we also delve into the mindset that makes an impact on you. Because what I've discovered through being a coach, through being a trainer, being a teacher, is that it's one thing to know something. It's something else to look at yourself and say, I know that I can make a difference here, and I trust my ability to do that without feeling like I have to over-prepare, without feeling like I have to constantly second-guess what I do. When you can really embrace what it is to be a role model for students, a lot of things begin to change. So you really focus on creating this to be not just an onboarding training that teaches you how to do things for this program, but really being a training that you can take into your next university, or your time after university, or your next job. At least that's the commitment that I put into it when I designed the training. And these are a few snapshots of what the training looks like in Japan. For most of the pictures you see in the upper left, disaster training. In Japan, you actually do get mandatory disaster training for what happens if an earthquake strikes. In the middle, you have a big picture of us in one of our main training rooms in Tokyo. A few pictures around there, lower left as well. Some people diligently listening. And in the lower right, a welcome dinner from 2018, if I recall that shot correctly. So a lot happens in the first week, but I'll be honest, the best part is just getting to hang out with so many people, because when the training day is done, you have a whole city open to you. And that blend of being able to deliver real value and make a real difference in the day, and hang out and chill for the rest of the day and the night, that's an awesome experience. So I've just said quite a few things. We are currently 20 minutes in, which is making decent time. Do you have any questions so far? I will hold for 1 minute before moving on, if there are no questions. This could be questions more about Come On Out, about Global English Camp as a whole, or anything that I've covered. What's coming up next is the camp in more detail, the logistics, and also the activities you might do outside the classroom. Carl asks, how are the living conditions? Do you provide housing? Is food provided? I'm going to answer that one briefly, because we actually go into that in depth later. The short is, we do provide housing. So that is provided at no cost via our partner. If you want an individual apartment, however, one that is not a share house or joined with other interns, that is something that has to be paid extra for. But otherwise, the majority of the options are living with other interns during the program. And food is provided with a stipend, which we can delve into later. Just clarifying question, is week of training and the first week out of 5, or is it the 6th week? It's the first week out of 5. If we are going by what we did in 2019, where we had group A and group B, each group gets 4 weeks of teaching with an additional 5th week of training. So that's 5 weeks. Wow, the questions are really coming in. Oh, Matt already answered that one. Thank you, Matt, for providing the tentative dates. The English curriculum is given to the English curriculum is provided via a textbook. To answer the question of the English curriculum given to us planned, is each teaching week of the camp with the same 4 to 6 students? That's an excellent question, actually. I realize I haven't verified that. Each week of the camp is different. So you might be in a different venue, and even if you're in the same venue, you definitely have different students. As far as the students are concerned, it is a 5-day program. So you'll be working with different groups of students each week. Nick says, it seems like you're talking a lot about becoming a better teacher and teaching certificates. Is this program meant for people who want to become English teachers in the future? I will say part of this is my own bias. I can't help but love teaching. That is, I work as a coach professionally. That's just what I love. This program, it has become a gateway for people to experiment with language teaching, see if it's for them and delve into it more. But for many other people, they just took this as a one-off experience and then appreciated for what it was and went on and did a different career and something else. So does this need to be something that will provide a teaching certificate or be the basis for background in teaching? Not necessarily, but it can be. And it can be a great way to see if it's what you want for yourself. All right, I'll take one more question from Amanda. Do you have many interns that go on the JET program? Matt beat me to it. Yes, we do. I personally did not go on the JET program. I believe Matt applied to teach in a Korean equivalent of the JET program. But there is a lot of mutual overlap. But what I would say is different about Come On Out Japan, in contrast to the JET program, is that the JET program, it's a full year investment. And it really is much more like let's call it a normal job. This very much is more like a short-term teaching stint over a summer, where the focus is much more on, I'd say, very active community-focused learning. It's not a standard classroom environment. And I will say that the energy that we've kind of got going in this training, in this info session right now, this is the energy that we keep over there as well. It's not a formal environment. It's not a rigid environment. It's very much one where we're trying to encourage everybody to bring what they have to the table and to encourage students to be themselves. Because in the Japanese education system, Japan is an amazing country and it produces a lot of amazing things. It's also a very collectivistic society where in school, people are really taught to be good citizens, which often does not necessarily mean expressing yourself and all your opinions to the fullest of their ability. I said one more question, but now I see another one. I promise, last question. Jin, what kind of people are you looking for? Three specific criteria do you have for people to participate in this program? Well, Matt or Gwen, would you like to answer that?
Sure, I'll jump in with a quick, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a bit at the end with the application. I'll just give quick tips. Number one, a passion for impacting students, making a difference in students' lives. Make that clear in your application, and that is most importantly what we're looking for. It's a great cultural exchange program, but it's about the students. And number two, be a flexible traveler. You might be teaching in a different venue around Japan each week, like Robert talked about. So have the ability to, move to a new city and bring that same energy Robert's talking about as well. Robert also talked about patience. That's something key in any teaching role. And then one other application tip is with your life mission response, be clear and focused on what your life mission is, even if you're not entirely sure, since I'm still not sure I'm still working on it. But, have an idea of how you're going to determine that, if not. Those are some tips. Otherwise, the vague answer, Jin, is that we love a variety. We have people from all over the world, all ages, undergrads, grads, PhD, etc., and different. Like Robert said, not all teachers, different majors, different passions, etc. Anyways, thanks.
I also would like to add that we definitely look for people who, you don't have to be an experienced teacher. I had absolutely no teaching experience before I did the program, but we are looking for people who, like Matt said, are patient, but also can speak slowly, articulate clearly what they want to say, and be able to say things in multiple different ways. That'll definitely come through in your application and your interviews as well.
Thanks, guys. And I will actually say, sort of just building, and then I promise we're moving on, building off of what Matt said at the beginning, really focused on impacting the students. This is a free bit of advice that I'll give everybody here, not just for this application process, but literally for any job you might ever apply to. Focus on what is important to the company you're applying to. For us, what's important to us is student impact. If you talk about student impact in your application, we're much more likely to get curious about who you are, and you're much more likely to get to the interview stage. If you talk a lot about yourself, because you might be a very interesting person. And I know that in definitely some of my applications, I've talked a lot about my accomplishments. But every time that I fail to tie my accomplishments or what I was proud of into a company directive, or something that the company could say, ooh, this is what we could use Robert for, I didn't hear back from them. So broadly, always make sure that in any application, not just this one, you're always talking to the values of who you're applying to. It might sound obvious, but until somebody tells you these things, it can be very easy not to pay attention to them. Believe me, if you haven't hunted for jobs much, it's not fun. So I'm saying the things that I wish somebody told me far sooner. On that happy note, let's go on to the camp. So what's the focus of Global English Camp activities? Well, broadly, here are the three things, which you might have heard me already say before. One is to discuss global issues. We focus on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Yes, it is a mouthful. That's what we call them, the UN SDGs. And we talk about these big ideas to help countries grow, help society grow, help humanity grow. We also focus on life missions. So this is for you to share your life mission, share what your vision for the future is. In fact, the two big presentations that you give as an intern there, one is about your university to give students a window into a foreign university. And the second is about what do you want to do through your degree with biology, through your master's in linguistics, through your hobbies in juggling fire. That's one of our interns does that. So it's sharing what do you want to do with your life with the intention of inspiring the students there. And then of course, talk a lot and have a lot of fun, because it can, just about anybody can have a lesson where you say things and people write things down and they walk away having learned some stuff, but it takes a very different kind of person and a very different kind of energy to enliven people through having a teaching experience that really is about the people that you're with, not just in spite of the people that you're with. Having fun, if you have fun, your students have fun. That means everybody's better off and gets to speak more and learn more. So let's go now into the program schedule. So I'm going to show you two schedules right now, one for our 5-day program in person and another one for our 2.5-day program online. This is the sample schedule for the 5-day program. The ways the days are broken down. First day is about getting to know each other. It's very much a team building day. Second day is about Japan and the world. Previously, we talked about the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Those went very well, but that was the topic of the Tuesday. Wednesday was what can we do for Japan, focusing on issues like regional revitalization in Japan and looking at how the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals apply to Japan. Then Thursday would be more about what can we do for the world? How can we focus on these goals to help improve quality of living? And then 5 is all dedicated to life mission preparation and life mission delivery. And when you look at the schedule, you can also notice that it's not too solidly packed. There's plenty of breaks in there. There's plenty of opportunities for presentations. That's what the university fairs are, the major field study introductions. And it's also what some of the speaking activities are. They're not rigid speaking activities. They are, in some ways, basically games, which focuses on promoting speaking. This is what the online program looks like. So remember, it's 2.5 days because the Friday is a half day. Very similar structure, but we've condensed them. So getting to know each other is the Friday. Then right on Saturday, you jump right into United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, focusing on having a lot more discussions and a lot fewer presentations. In the in-person program, we have 3 presentations. The one previously about the Olympic Games, another one about UN SDGs, and then the third one, Life Mission. Here, the 1-day presentation is on Sunday, which is Life Mission presentation. And if you have any questions about the schedule so far, please write them in the chat and I can get to them at the next Q&A opportunity. So here's a few pictures of what the speaking activities and games look like. So I wish I could tell you what's going on. My screen's there, by the way. I have two of them, and no, I can't tell you what's going on, but they look really happy. And that's what matters. They're saying things, they're doing things with their hands, and then on the right, they're actually having an easier way, easier thing for me to describe. They're holding up a picture and describing the picture. So the speaking activities really do range from everything from impromptu speaking, standing up and basically doing a lot more stuff with your body alongside just word memorization, and discussions. I apologize, that was not my best articulation, but I think I've made up for it for the other things that I have said. We got more here. In the upper left, you've got Where the West Wind Blows, where you might have played this game before. I certainly hadn't until Japan. But you stand in the middle and say, the west wind blows if you have brown hair. And then everybody with brown hair has to run to their side of the room and steal a seat. The person who's left behind has to do it again. That's definitely just one of the most fun ones because it's absolute chaos with a lot of people. The one on the right is the Someone Like You activity, where on Thursday, you actually write down 5 things that basically define you, things that you like. I wrote, I like bubble tea, and I'd go around asking if they like bubble tea as well. And if they did, then I could add a little check mark that yes, Sato likes bubble tea as well. And it's just a fun activity where halfway through the week you get to make new friends. And then down below, well, great one-to-one conversation about something. We all love that. I think that's the Nagoya venue. Clicker. Oh. The Tokyo 2020 Olympics discussion is going to need to be redone now that we're in person again. But the gist of it really is the program focuses on a lot of discussions. The purpose of the discussions is just to get students talking. What students actually say, ironically, does not matter as much as just the fact that they're talking. So the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, though, was a great opportunity to get people to think about something fun. What's it like when foreigners come over here? How can we make their experience great? It all culminates in these posters where people will bring them to the front of the class. You will probably get to hold them up and they will do all the talking about how can we ensure that people have a good time, they know where to go, and all those other good things that are important when you're visiting a foreign country. Something is very similar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where they generally will focus on 1 to 2 goals if they couldn't agree on one, and they'll have a presentation about that as well for about 5 minutes. We also have additional modules, including the entrepreneur discussion, where students get to talk about topics that are not the Olympic Games, such as getting to pitch an idea that then becomes a presentation, such as a microwavable bento box named Mike, or the domination switch, which turns off your annoying siblings, patent pending. We also have other things on regional revitalization, which is about how do we restore, how do I best describe this? A lot of people go to Tokyo. Fewer people need to go to Tokyo and stay where they come from so the places can still be smart and have lots of people. How do we ensure that happens? And lots of other fun topics, which I currently do not recall. And I think what's great about a lot of these things, as to paraphrase this testimonial, what's a great experience about getting to work with a well-planned schedule and getting to work with really enthusiastic students is that it gives you that chance to understand what are your strengths and weaknesses as a teacher. Or even beyond that, even if you don't consider a career in teaching, what makes you effective as a leader? Where do you struggle? Where do you want to improve? These are the sorts of things that you can only learn through experience. And it's something that really comes through when you're working day in and day out for several weeks with lots of different groups of people that you have to bond with quickly and make a lasting impact on. World issues, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. More of those posters again. There are a lot of goals. We don't have a picture of them, do we? Yeah, we don't have a picture of them, but these include things like sustainable energy, decent economic growth, decent work and economic growth. How can we preserve life on the sea? How we can preserve life on land? You really get to go deep into these discussions with students about what impact you want to have on the world, what do you think is important? Gender equality and quality education are two of the most popular topics when we go through this. And again, it all culminates with people, with all your students creating a poster, staying in front of the room and sharing it with everybody. And things that students say in these presentations are awesome. And it's in between some of the ways in which they articulate their ideas, to the real profundity of what they say. It's a real pleasure to actually get to hear students talk about what they learned or what they think about. And it's really impressive as well when, if you speak a second language to so ability, to imagine what that must be like to speak English as a second language and develop a presentation on hyperinflation. I think I've heard at least one or more students say. But this is really one of the most important parts right here. As I mentioned before, you share your life missions as well. You share your university, you share your life mission. And this is a chance where you get to, in some cases, just with a small group of students, in some cases with the entire classroom, get to talk about what's important to you. What do you want to do with your life? And at the moment, what's your university life like? What has it been? Before COVID, there was a lot more about going outside and doing things. With COVID, there's been a lot more, well, I'm at home and my office is this desk. But it's a great way to facilitate not only just a discussion about, hey, my life's different from yours. That's interesting. I hadn't thought that life could be any different than the way I lived. Because we tend to just assume that things are kind of constant wherever we go, even if we don't think about it. To just giving students that chance to see, wow, this is what it could be like for me if I studied abroad, or this is something that I could see for myself that I want to do when I go into a biology degree. And because we really focus hard on this whole aspect of life missions, maybe you're passionate right now. Maybe you have a really strong sense of what's valuable to you. For me, it's always been about transforming education. But maybe you don't have a strong sense of what you want to accomplish in your life. And that sounds incredibly daunting when I put it like that, I know. But that's why doing stuff like this gives you the opportunity to actually go deeper into what is valuable to me. What do I want to do? And for a lot of people, they come out with, I think in our last year, it was 71% of all interns reported that this program had in some shape or form impacted their life mission, whether it was causing to change direction a little bit or to build even further. This is a great program for getting to get clear on this thing that's kind of important for you, that will stay with you long after the program is done. And then, of course, a final day is your students' life missions, where every student gets to own the stage for a few minutes each and talk about the things that they want to do, whether it's to become a radiologist at Central Tokyo Hospital, whether it's to become a researcher in the field of linguistics, whether it's to go out and do for some new career in STEM. You hear all kinds of things from your students, and to hear them articulate that after having worked for them for 5 days, it is awesome. And you can't help but think about, if this is where they are right now, think about where they'll be in just a few years. If you got more questions on that, please do ask, because I'm always trying to be mindful of time as best as I can. And I got to be more mindful of that right now. So at the end of the week, though, you go into parting ways. That's not actually the name of this segment. That's just what the title says. But that's a good opportunity where you stand up in front of the room, you say your goodbye to your students, and because this is always a question we get, can you speak Japanese to your students? At the end of the week, yes, you can. Before that, you're not supposed to because they need to speak English. But at the end of the week, you always get to have fun surprising your students with the Japanese that you know, whether it is not great Japanese that's just very entertaining, or outstandingly good Japanese that they can't believe you've hidden from them. But ultimately, you start and end the week in a great place. And that's a very, very long testimonial, which I will not try and improv a unpacking of at this time. So what's included in this internship then, kind of beyond the schedule? Well, we get a round trip airfare with limitations and procedures. So if you're already wondering, hey, what's the air travel like? How do I get over there? How much do I have to pay? This is the important part for you to know. You pay a $500 deposit at the time of purchase, paid directly to the travel agency using a credit card or debit card. And 80% of your deposit is returned within 45 days of completion of the program. So $400. The $100 that we take goes into background checks. It goes into training and onboarding. It also goes into the orientation weekend that we do, which usually is in the mountains. So it goes to a good place, but this is really a security deposit to make sure that if anything has, particularly with housing, needs to be fixed at the end of the program, the deposit's there, but you get pretty much all of it back. When it comes to the airfare itself, In the past, the travel agency has covered up to, I believe, $1,200. This figure might change. I'm also recalling this from my experience, but you can expect that in the majority of cases, your entire flight to and from Japan will be covered. And if you have something where you might say, "Ooh, I actually want to go to Korea before I go to Japan. I'll stay there for 5 days, then go to Japan. And then on the way back, I'll stop over in India and then go back to London after that." That may or may not have been my situation in 2018 for quite a few reasons. Your class was called an irregular case, where I believe $1,000 or so is covered, or maybe slightly less, and you pay the difference. That could change depending on the travel agency we use this year. But in general, if you're going straight to and from there, full coverage. If you want to do a few stops before and after, fully doable. You might have to pay a bit to make it happen, but we won't stop you. And you're also free to turn up in Japan earlier as well. You, by all means, you don't have to turn up exactly on the day the thing begins. You can come in a week early, a month early, if you got the ability to make it happen. Then with housing, and this also relates to housing and transportation. So you have shared housing, dorm rooms, homestays, where you stay with a Japanese family, apartments, hotels, guest houses. Lots of things might be utilized depending on location and depending on what our partner Come On Up has available where you're staying. Additional fees are required if you want an individual apartment, which is just to you. But in general, everybody has said in the past that the co-living experience is one of the best things about this program. And weekly food subsidies and transportation reimbursement for trips to and from class is also offered. So previously, this could be subject to change. I have to say this because I'm representing the company, not me. I always have to remind myself of this. In the past, it was 1,000, I believe it was 1,000 yen, about $10 for dinner, 500 yen or 600 yen, $5-6 for lunch. But in most situations, you can actually find yourself saving a bit of money every day, as I did, if you don't spend a lot at those meals. But food is covered within those boundaries, and believe me, it's more than enough to eat in any Japanese city. And you get reimbursed for trips related to traveling to and from the classroom venue. So if it's a quick trip, great, you get reimbursed a little bit of money. If it's a very long, hour-long trip, like I had when I was working in Osaka, you get paid a lot more, but it's just to make up for the cost. Then two more things. You get lots of additional program activities, including optional field trips, a program retreat, Japanese language classes, specifically featured in Tokyo and Osaka. If you're staying in a different part of Japan, it might not be as possible, but you get to be in a different part of Japan, which is pretty cool. And after class activities, virtually every day of the week. Whether they are planned or impromptu, there's always something going on. There's also health and accident insurance to cover you during your time in Japan, so you don't have to worry about that. We handle that for you. And of course, what's also included in the internship is the cultural experience of a lifetime, which is something that, although I say it somewhat blasé, I got to be honest, it is really cool. Because the people you meet, the way you get to impact students and the things you do, it really is something else, getting to travel abroad. And then if you're like many of us, you'll come back outside of Japan and you won't stop talking about the time you went to Japan. You will become that guy or that girl or that, whichever you want to be. I finally reached the interim questions. I didn't think it would take that long to get through this section, but quickly spam the chat with your questions, and then we'll cover activities beyond the classroom at hyperspeed, your chance to apply, and a further open Q&A above anything else that you might want to leave until just the very end. Oh, wow, our meal allowance is even better than I thought. Yeah, around $20 USD. I'm a programmer, so internet connectivity is usually very important for me. How good is internet connectivity and most of the housing? Nick, that is an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. I can't believe this isn't included in the presentation. What we recommend, and we've been trying to push this to be part of the internship with our partner. It has not been covered in the past, but what we recommend is you get what's called pocket Wi-Fi. Basically, pocket Wi-Fi is a device that gives you Wi-Fi wherever you go, as the name would suggest. Essentially, it means that you can connect your phone, your laptop, and any other devices you might have to this thing. It's a hotspot. It's a wireless hotspot. And the pocket Wi-Fi can give you some insane speeds, like better than I have at home right now. I think in 1 year, I was getting up to 200 megabits per second download speed on pocket Wi-Fi. So although it's a portable device, they are really good. And the overall internet infrastructure in Japan is solid. So if you're concerned about internet connectivity, don't worry, unless you're really out in the middle of the sticks, you're covered by the device you will have in your pocket. Is there any preference for interns who speak Japanese? Gwen answers, Amanda, no preference at all. Matt also says that, but with more words. Hannah says, thank you so much for being here today. I was wondering what quality to look for in applicants. So we answered this question in the last session, but to paraphrase essentially I think to kind of bring together all the things that we said, what really matters is that you want to impact students. And I think I'll contrast this by saying, if your main interest in this program is you want to go to Japan, that's fair. Going to Japan is fun. But if it's not evident in your application that for you, wanting to impact students is as important, not more important than the trip itself, you won't get ranked as highly in our process. It can be it's usually quite a competitive application process when it comes to the initial screening. So we really look for, are you interested in impacting students in a meaningful way? And to what extent are you clear in your life mission or open to discovering what that life mission could be? So I would say those are the top things I'd say to look for in the written application. And then if you get through to the next stage, well, you get to talk to one of us. And I like to think we're pretty approachable. So you'll have a good second interview. Your point of view, I think. Do you still have to be an undergrad to be an intern? Apologies if actually, Jade, that was not answered earlier. You do not have to be an undergrad to participate in this program. We've had master's students participate. We've had PhD students participate. We've had people with years of teaching experience participate in this program. We predominantly market towards undergrads because, well, what I've discovered having graduated from being an undergrad is that undergrads are the most eager for opportunities compared to marketing towards the other university groups. But if you're a bit older and not an undergrad, not to worry, you still have a shot at getting in. So please do feel free to apply. Much. Okay. Then thank you, Matt, for answering that. Yeah, as well, we have visa. We can usually stay in Japan if we have a visa. Matt says it depends for USA, UK, Canada. We can do a tourist visa. You don't need to apply for one. For countries that require a visa, we work with you individually to get it. Thanks for that, Matt. Jessica asks, how competitive is the program? Do you think it'll be more competitive this year because they'll be returning to being in person? I can say from having analyzed last few years of applications, I'm a psychology and language sciences graduate. I'm this close to doing like p-value analysis on these things, but approximately 1 out of every 10 people get in, maybe a bit less than that. So that's about 10%. So it's pretty competitive, but definitely compared to getting into Harvard, not as competitive. I was actually surprised at the ultimate figure. Last year, we got around 1,600 applications, but some of those applications also came in after the cutoff point. So I'd say the most important thing when it comes to the competitive nature of this program, please make sure that you apply before the 31st of December. We cannot guarantee that you will be able to progress to the interview stage if you apply after that. That is one of the most important things, but it is about 1 in 10 in terms of competitiveness. Can having Japanese citizenship benefit your application? I would say that it does not necessarily benefit your application because when we look at it, we are really looking at, well, sort of basically the qualities that they've mentioned before. So it's your desire to impact students, your life mission, these sorts of things. Japanese citizenship, I would say as a team, we do have slightly different ways of reviewing things, but at least in mine, if you are a Japanese citizen, did not affect the application score that I gave because that was not necessarily, that was immaterial, I would say. So I would say that it does not hurt to have Japanese citizenship, but it does not disadvantage you to have it either. Okay. Great, so there's no more questions at the moment. Matt and Gwen, please feel free to answer any more if there's any that come up. And I'm going to quickly run through this last section. It's a lot of pictures mostly. And then we'll open up to broad Q&A again. So what can you do in Japan? Hyperspeed time, cultural experiences. You can go and have dinner in one place. You can go and have dinner in another place. You can go to the Sulphur Springs in Kanagawa Prefecture. You can go to the beach and pose for a photo. You can go and do calligraphy class. You can do a tea ceremony in the lower right. You can do language classes. You can buy a textbook for your language classes like I did, and then learn how to say things that are very funny and also interesting. One time I learned how to ask if this train was bound for Yokohama, and 2 years later, I needed that phrase. You won't become fluent in one summer, but language classes are awesome. Day trips. You can get on a pirate ship. You can go to the beach again. You can go to a different beach. There's a lot of beach pictures here. But you can walk somewhere else as well. You can go around to Okinawa if you're there. You can go to Hiroshima if you're in the mainland. It's a bit of a long train ride for most places. But broadly, honestly, with day trips, the things you can do ultimately come down to how willing you are to plan it or join somebody else who has a plan. Japan is incredibly well connected, and I think this is more useful than anything else I could spam out there. Japan is so well connected via trains that if you're willing to put the research in to plan something out, you can travel halfway to the other side of the main island of Honshu and then come back to Tokyo by the end of the day. How many hours you'll have to do the thing you want in between, that can depend. But there is so much stuff out there that if you want to make it happen, you can probably make it happen. And overall, beyond all the kind of stuff that you can do after class, it's an unforgettable experience for you and for your students. This is one of the classrooms that we had in, I tried to guess what this was last time. I was completely wrong. So I'm just going to say Nagano Prefecture. Matt, you can't correct me on this. I'm going with Nagano Prefecture. I think this is a small to average size class. This is a much bigger class based in, I'm going to make this up again. I'm going to say Takao. This one I know is in Okinawa because it says so. Okinawa is one of the smaller venues, and every year one team goes out to Okinawa. Likewise, one team goes out to Hokkaido. If you get to go one of those places, I want to be you. That's been one of my goals for this program the last few years. But overall, you get a sense that every week you'll be teaching a group of students, but the venues can vary widely in location, in the size of the groups, and the number of the age range of the students. We work with students from every age, ranging from late middle school, predominantly high school, but even a few university students. And then last part, and I think this also just shows how far we've come in the last few years. We've grown a lot over the years too, which means that you get to meet a lot of people, because 2015, this was the team. There's young Matthew Pollock in the upper right, jumping around excitedly. Then it grew even more. Everybody started working at the Apple store, and they got like a little error bar across their chest. It was great. I wasn't there. Then I wasn't here either. But then look, now everybody's in teal, and now we're on a bigger floor because there's so many people. Now there's way more people. This is 2018. I'm somewhere in there, I'm not sure where. That was about just shy of 200 people that year. This was about 100. This is about 50. This was about 12, 8, 9. It grew significantly. This was 2019, where we had 2 groups spread out, where the start dates were staggered by 1 week, similar to this year's program. And you can return, which I think, as all of us on the call from Coming Out have demonstrated, if you love this program a lot, you can come back year after year. And believe me, we will not stop you if you want to come back and you're a great person to be around. If you're not, we might stop you. But we're going to assume you're a good person, so we want to have you. Because that's what makes this program great. And I feel completely unashamed in saying that. It's the connections that we build with each other, and it's the fact that we all come together for something that's valuable and important to us and can leave a real lasting impact on students. So what difference do you want to make? That's the question that I want you to think about when you apply to this program. So please apply now. Remember Matt's wonderful sipping face as you do so. Thank you for taking this info session. You are free to leave, not that you weren't before, but now you have my consent to do so. And by all means, if you have any questions, please ask them now, and we will endeavor to answer them.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, we'll stick around for a bit to answer any final questions. So feel free to type in the chat or raise your hand with the Zoom raise hand feature. And thank you, Gwen, for posting the nice summary with all the links. Much better than what I sent.
No problem. Yeah, please feel free to ask anything you want. Like any question is welcome. Yeah.
And final message before we shut off the recording. If you're interested, apply soon. Apply now. The sooner the better, because Robert, Gwen, and I are going to start reviewing applications soon. And we do contact people on a rolling basis.
Yes.
Thanks again.
And great. Yep. And then Jacob asked a great question. Will the recording be available? Gwen has replied, you can find it in our YouTube channel listed above in a few weeks. Jessica asks, do you foresee that there will be any COVID precautions still in place this year? Matt, you know our partners, I think, better than, well, the best out of the three of us. What do you think about COVID precautions?
Yeah, I mean, regardless, I imagine there will be some semblance of precautions. We just don't know at this time. The Japanese government is predicting opening for tourists completely open in April, but we can, you know, as we all know, living through these times, it's all unpredictable. It's all not set in stone. So we'll just, you know, ask everyone to continue monitoring their own embassies, their own governments, their own travel restrictions from their countries, and we will continue to provide updates as well through our newsletter and during the onboarding practice.
And just like, you know, you guys, your health, your safety, and the students' safety comes first. So just know that we want to go as much as you do. You know, we haven't been back since 2019, so we're trying our best to make it happen, but health comes first. So we're very optimistic. I want to add that.
Assuming that things do open up for tourism, I would imagine the minimum we'd expect would be face masks, because that's always been a cultural thing in Japan to wear face masks in case of sickness. I could anticipate that being a thing this summer. Beyond that, my interpretation that in Japan and with many countries, although COVID is still an active concern, people often live as though it's not an active concern. So we'll see, but at the very least, I think we're comfortable saying face masks would be a thing in classrooms. Then Nick asked, will there be vaccination requirements? I would say that we have not discussed internally imposing any vaccination requirements. I would argue that most likely, if it would be the vaccination requirements required to enter Japan. So if Japan requires proof of vaccination, that would be something. I know that already that travel requirements have evolved in the last 2 months alone. I visited Portugal 2 months ago. I had to get tested 3 times before, during, and after the thing. What a nightmare. And then I just did a trip this week and I get tested once tomorrow. So the tests can change quite a lot. Those might, depending on Japan's state this summer, there may or may not be requirements for evidence of negative COVID tests or vaccination, but that would be externally imposed, most likely by the government, potentially by our partners, but most likely just by the government is what I'd anticipate.
And also, I mean, knowing the Japanese government, they're likely to impose some sort of restriction, but we just don't know. So don't let that affect your application or your acceptance, because like Matt said, we'll give you extra time to decide, but also consider that you will be teaching in some real schools in Japan, which may or may not have vaccine requirements. So even if we don't require vaccines for some reason, or the government doesn't, that may be a hindrance if you want to teach in a specific place. We just don't know yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, good call.
Thanks, Glenn. I think, yeah. Matt?
No, I was saying, yeah, Gwen, good call. That's absolutely right. Thinking about the schools, the venues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The short of it is, just to reiterate, internally, as Come Out Japan, we have not imposed any vaccine requirements for the program, but there are any number of third parties or partners that might do so. So we will definitely mention anything as we learn about it. But at the moment, there's nothing that we've been told has been planned for vaccine requirements.
Any other questions? I know some of our answers were pretty fast. We were trying to type really quickly. So if anything wasn't clear, please feel free to ask for clarification.
Feel free to come off mute too, if you prefer. Otherwise, happy to keep reading the chat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mie.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
If you're in the US, have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Jess. All right. Thanks, Alexa. All right. Well, thanks, everyone,
Thanks.
Thank you.
and have a good evening.
Take care.